A death row inmate's final meal request can reveal deep and chilling insights into their mind. Let's start with one of the most bizarre and unforgettable requests. Victor Figuer, the last person executed in Iowa before the state abolished the death penalty, convicted of kidnapping and murdering. Figuer's last meal request was remarkably unique and profoundly symbolic: a single olive with the pit still in it. By asking for an olive with the pit intact, Figuer hoped that an olive tree would sprout from his grave, a universal symbol of peace, reconciliation, and new beginnings. Figuer was executed by hanging on March 15, 1963. His request for the olive was fulfilled, and he was buried with the olive pit in his pocket, although an olive tree never grew from his grave. His gesture remains memorable for its symbolic hope amidst grim circumstances. Ricky Ray Rector, executed in Arkansas in 1992, had a last meal request that is remembered for its haunting simplicity. Rector, who was said to be mentally impaired, asked for steak, fried chicken, cherry Kool-Aid, and pecan pie. However, he left the pecan pie untouched, telling guards he would save it for later. Rector's request was a tragic reminder of his mental state, raising ethical questions about executing someone with a diminished capacity to understand their fate. His story continues to be a significant point of discussion in debates about mental health in the death penalty. Lawrence Brewer, a white supremacist convicted of the brutal murder of James Byrd Jr., made headlines with his final meal request. Brewer asked for a feast fit for a king: 2 chicken fried steaks, a triple bacon cheeseburger, a cheese omelet, fried okra, a pound of barbecued meat, 3 fajitas, a meat lover's pizza, a pint of ice cream, and a slab of peanut butter fudge with crushed peanuts. However, when the meal was presented to him, Brewer refused to eat a single bite. This wasteful and seemingly mocking gesture led Texas to end the tradition of allowing inmates to choose their last meal. Brewer never officially explained why he refused to eat the meal, but his gesture was widely seen as a final act of defiance and contempt. Thomas J. Grosso, executed in Oklahoma in 1995 for the murder of 2 elderly people. Grosso's last meal included 2 dozen steamed mussels, 2 dozen steamed clams, a double cheeseburger from Burger King, half a dozen barbecued spare ribs, 2 strawberry milkshakes, half a pumpkin pie with whipped cream, and a can of SpaghettiOs with meatballs served at room temperature. What makes this request particularly strange is that Grosso's final words included a complaint about his last meal. "I did not get my SpaghettiOs, I got spaghetti. I want the press to know this." His fixation on the SpaghettiOs, even in his final moments, added an unusual twist to his story and highlighted the peculiarities of last meal requests on death row. Ted Bundy. Notorious serial killer Ted Bundy, executed in Florida in 1989, did not have an appetite for a final meal. Declining to make a specific request, he was given the standard last meal of steak, eggs, hash browns, toast with butter and jelly, milk, and juice. Bundy, however, left the meal untouched, reflecting his state of mind in his final hours. James Edward Smith, executed in Texas in 1990 for murder, Smith made a final request that baffled prison officials. In a departure from the usual last meal requests, Smith asked for something unconventional: a lump of dirt. Not just any dirt, but a specific type from a particular area in Haiti, intended for a voodoo ritual. The Texas Department of Criminal Justice denied his request, citing that dirt was not among the approved food items. Consequently, Smith reluctantly settled for a cup of yogurt. Philip Workman, executed in Tennessee in 2007 for the murder of a police officer during a robbery, Workman had a last meal request that was both selfless and poignant. Workman declined a special meal for himself and instead asked that a large vegetarian pizza be given to a homeless person. Prison officials denied this request, citing regulations, but Workman's wish inspired people across the country to donate pizzas to homeless shelters in his honor. This act of kindness stood in stark contrast to his crime and highlighted the potential for redemption and humanity, even in those condemned to die. John Wayne Gacy, the infamous killer clown who murdered 33 young men and boys, had a last meal request that was both unsettling and mundane. Gacy asked for a dozen deep-fried shrimp, a bucket of KFC original recipe chicken, French fries, and a pound of strawberries. Gacy's request was a nod to his time managing 3 KFC restaurants before his arrest. This chilling connection between his past life and his final moments added another layer of horror to his already notorious legacy. Frank Atwood, convicted of the abduction and murder of an 8-year-old girl in Arizona in 1984, stood out during his final hours on death row. Atwood chose to make a poignant statement with his last meal. Unlike many others, he opted to refuse any special requests or a final meal altogether, continuing a prolonged period of fasting. Atwood's refusal of a last meal underscored his steadfast opposition to the justice system's outcome, leaving a stark and resolute impression on the eve of his execution in 2011. Eileen Wuornos, the female serial killer portrayed in the film Monster, had a last meal request that was as unique as her life. Wuornos declined a special meal and instead asked for a cup of black coffee. Her stark request reflected her defiance and perhaps a desire to face her fate without any indulgence. Wuornos' final words were equally memorable. "I'd just like to say I'm sailing with the rock and I'll be back, like Independence Day with Jesus. June 6th, like the movie, big mothership and all, I'll be back." Her cryptic and eerie farewell left an indelible mark on those who heard it. Odell Barnes, executed in Texas in 2000, Barnes, whose case garnered significant attention and raised questions about his guilt, requested something beyond food: justice, equality, and world peace. Barnes's request reflected a profound hope for broader societal change, emphasizing themes of fairness and global harmony. His unconventional last meal plea resonated deeply with those questioning the fairness of his conviction and the death penalty itself. Timothy McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bomber responsible for 168 deaths, had a last meal request that was surprisingly ordinary, yet filled with silent defiance. McVeigh requested 2 pints of mint chocolate chip ice cream. McVeigh's final statement was a poem, Invictus, which includes the famous lines, "I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." His choice of dessert and his final words both reflected his unrepentant and defiant attitude, even in the face of death. Stephen Wayne Anderson, executed in California in 2002, had one of the more bizarre last meal requests. Anderson asked for 2 grilled cheese sandwiches, a pint of cottage cheese, a hominy and corn mixture, peach pie, chocolate chip ice cream, and radishes. Anderson's eclectic menu was a strange mix, reflecting perhaps a desire for comfort and nostalgia in his final moments. His crime, the murder of an elderly woman during a burglary, stood in stark contrast to the seemingly innocent nature of his meal. Robert Alton Harris, executed in California in 1992 for the murder of 2 teenage boys, Harris's final meal request was less about the food and more about the message it sent. He requested a 21-piece bucket of KFC, 2 large Domino's pizzas, ice cream, a bag of jelly beans, a 6-pack of Pepsi, and a pack of Camel cigarettes. Harris's request was unusual not just for its size, but for the way it echoed his life outside prison. Before his execution, he had a disturbing message for those present. "You can be a king or a street sweeper, but everybody dances with the Grim Reaper." His words and his meal choice reflected a man unrepentant and defiant until the very end. What would your last meal be before they drag you to the chamber? Share your most unique choices in the comments below. Curious about the haunting realities of life on death row? Dive into one of my other gripping videos, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay updated with my latest uploads.